Hare Krishna. And before we start today's class, let us take the blessings of the beautiful deities of ISKCON Mangaluru, Sri Sri Radha Govind Ji, Sri Sri Radha Govind Ji ki Jai. So yesterday, I think we were in 42nd shloka actually, but we'll start from shloka 40 because it's 40 to 43 is like one combined shloka. Okay, so yesterday we saw, right, there were four reasons why Arjuna didn't want to fight. So the first one is compassion for his relatives, and the second one is there is no enjoyment because by killing everybody, and even if he gains victory, what is the use of such kind of victory where he cannot share it with anybody? So he says there is no enjoyment. And third is like he says, fear of sinful reaction. Hare Krishna, requesting the devotees to please be on mute. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And third is like fear of sinful reactions. And the fourth is dynasty. I mean, like fear of falling down of the dynasty. Right? So that is what we were discussing. So in shloka number 40, yeah. So for 40, we just start with the translation. So we just read the 39 translation also because it is a continuation of 40 is a continuation of 39. So in 39 it is said, with the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of family involves in irreligion. So here, Prabhupada, Arjuna is trying to say that if the dynasty is destroyed, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. Okay, generally, when we have, see, when we have elders in the family, they are the ones who give us the samskaras or cultures or traditions that we have to follow, right? So all the samskaras, right? Yesterday we saw all the samskaras right from birth to death. What are they? See, yeah, these are the main samskaras. Okay, so Hare Krishna, is everybody able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Yeah. So, but what happens, Arjuna is saying, what happens if the death of the elder will happen? So, all this purificatory process will stop because nobody will be able to guide the children in that family or the youth in that family of all these purificatory processes. So, because of which they will not know what is good, what is bad, what to do, what not to do. Okay, and they become irreligious. They don't know, like, because they don't know what is good, what is bad, what to follow, what not to follow. They just go into the society. They don't know what is good, bad, and they take into all these bad habits. They become irreligious. They don't know what is spirituality. They lose the chance to get that spiritual salvation. See, if you do all these samskaras, material samskaras at least, I mean, it's like you are following according to your varna and ashrama, you will be doing your duties and responsibilities. That is indirectly you're satisfying Lord Vishnu. But if the death of the elder person happens and nobody is there to guide the women or the younger children or youth, then obviously they'll become irreligious. Nobody is there to guide them. Right? So that is what is said in 39. So with that continuation, the same thing. See, in 40, they are saying, when irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted. And from degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. Okay, here he's saying, see, if the elders are not there in the family, they die, then the younger, the women or the children, they who will guide them? See, nobody is there to guide them. See, it is already always said that women and children, they are innocent and they're ignorant, so they always need to be under the guidance of the elders. See, it is always said that, per the Shastras, it is said that the women, I mean, right from birth, she should always be under the care of somebody. Like when she's a small child, she's under the care of the father. In her youth, she's under the care of her husband. And in the old age, she's under the care of her sons. So always she needs to be protected. Okay, so she has to be always under the guidance of somebody. But in totally different to this, now you'll see women are so irreligious. That is the one of the reason, because they don't have elders who guide them. See, a woman is pure and chaste when she knows what she has to do, what not to do. Like when she knows all these, when she does all these spiritual practices, she practices all these samskaras, then she will be able to produce good children and everything. Because if you get good children, yeah, it will be good for the society and everything will be good. But if the women, see, when they become irreligious because there is nobody to guide them, they are under nobody's protection. Okay, what happens? They freely mix with men, they freely mix with people of the opposite gender, and they become polluted, because of which they give rise to unwanted children. See, unwanted progeny. That is called Varna Sankara. Okay, okay. So here in the shloka they are saying, Prabhupada is saying that, see, if women are polluted, obviously it means that the men who are trying to pollute her also, they don't also follow any rules and regulations, because of which they get unwanted children. Okay, and it is said that, and thus unwanted children flood the human race at the risk of war and pestilence. Okay, so unwanted children, I mean, they also don't have good habits. They don't know what is good, bad. These spiritual practices, samskaras, nobody gives them, because the parents themselves don't know. And because of which, what happens? You can see in the continuation of 41, we'll see an increase of unwanted population certainly causes what? Hellish life, both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. Okay, so now what Prabhupada says in the purport of Shloka 41 is, according to the rules and regulations, right, of fruitive activities. We do karma kanda, right? See, when any of our near and dear ones die, we actually give them pinda every year, right? We need to I mean, like, per karma kanda we have to follow some rituals, right? Some samskaras. Like there is a need to offer food and water to our forefathers of our family. Okay, generally the pinda that is done given to the forefathers is generally in offering. First we offer whatever we want to offer to the forefathers. It is offered to Vishnu. Okay, and that prasada, that the remnants after which Vishnu accepts, is given to the is offered to the forefathers. Why is this done? Actually, sometimes, the forefathers, they may be suffering from different kinds of sinful reactions. They must have performed many sins here when they were living. They must have done many wrong deeds and actions, because of which they have to bear all these sinful reactions. Okay, and sometimes even beyond that, they do such gross sinful activities that sometimes they don't even get a gross material body. They are living in the subtle body as ghosts. Okay, but when this prasadam is given to them, this prasadam, I mean, the food that is offered to Lord Vishnu is given as pinda to them, to the forefathers. They are released from all these ghostly and other kinds of miserable life. Okay, so beneficial. Okay, so but see, they give all these, but who will now Arjuna is saying, see, all this will be stopped now because the children they don't know how to they have to offer all these pinda and water and prasadam. They don't know. Nobody has told them. They don't know all these samskaras. Then who will do? So obviously they're saying that they anyway will go to hell because they don't know all these samskaras. Okay, the forefathers, even they are even the forefathers also, because they don't get all these pindadana, they also suffer in hell. So that's what Arjuna is trying to say here. See, if you see in this chart, hell is condition, family who destroyed family tradition, ancestors are not delivered and they fall down. So they go down into hellish regions because they are not offered the prasadam of Lord Vishnu. That pinda is not offered. Okay, and all this, why is all this happening? Because of irresponsible leaders. They bring chaos in society by destroying Sanatana Dharma. See, because nobody has idea of Sanatana Dharma. Now the political leaders, you see, is anybody interested in Sanatana Dharma? They 24 hours they want to make money, they want to squeeze out money from the public, and they want to make money and they want to enjoy by themselves. Nobody is least bothered about the concept of God or Sanatan Dharma, the samskaras, nothing. They're not interested. They're so irresponsible. That's what Prabhupada is trying to, Prabhupada through Arjuna is trying to say, these leaders are so irresponsible. So when such Varna Sankara children come, what happens? Obviously, when they grow as adults also, they bring so much chaos in the society because they don't know any spirituality, then they don't follow any spirituality, they don't know any samskaras. So what samskaras, what kind of society will we have with such people? It will be a society of demons, right? Actually, there are only two kinds of people in this material world: demons and demigods, they say. I mean, good people and bad people. So if the society is full of demons, what else can we expect? Full of chaos, right? When there's no spirituality, nothing is there, no rules and regulations are being followed, no samskaras are followed, what can we expect? So here, that's what Arjuna is saying, that for all this, for creating this situation, we will also go to hell, Krishna. Okay. Anyway, the children who don't do Pindadan, they will go to, because they don't have any samskaras, they will go to hell. And because the forefathers in the Pitraloka, they will also be in difficulties because they will also go to hell because they didn't get that Pindadana. And for creating this situation, we will also go to hell now. I mean, we in the sense Arjuna is telling, I will also go to hell. So, because of such Varna Sankara children, society will be degraded. So, Arjuna is saying, I will be the reason for this. So, that is why Arjuna is asking, is it important to fight? Okay. And at the same time, in the purport, Prabhupada says in, let's read 42 shloka. It is said that, translation, by the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. See, when Sanatan Dharma is not there, or this Varnashrama Dharma is not followed, actually, why is this Varnashrama Dharma established? So that we have peace, prosperity, and spiritual progress, right? So that is the reason this Varnashrama is established by Krishna. See, he says that per each Varna and Ashrama, they have a set of roles, duties, and responsibilities which they have to follow to satisfy Lord Vishnu. So when that is not done, the Varnashrama system itself is not there, then where is the scope of peace? Where is prosperity? Where is spiritual progress? So all this is stopped. Okay, so by breaking of this Sanatana Dharma tradition, by the irresponsible leaders, it brings about chaos in the society. So, and gradually people forget what is the aim of life, that is worshipping Vishnu, doing devotional service to Vishnu. So they forget that. So here Prabhupada is saying such leaders are blind persons, and if we follow such blind persons, we also, I mean, like, are sure to be led into that situation where chaos is created. Okay, so that's what they're saying. But here, what Prabhupada says, like in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that, see, we don't, those who are were devotees of Krishna, who do devotional service to Krishna, or who have taken shelter of Krishna, for them it is not necessary to do all these samskaras or rituals. Okay, why? Why is it? Because they have taken shelter of Krishna. So those who have taken shelter of Krishna, who do devotional service of Krishna, they are not in debt to anybody. Okay, they don't have to do all these pindadana or offering oblations to forefathers and who are in the Pitraloka. They are not in debt to anybody. So actually, if you see in the purport, Prabhupada says that um, anyone who has taken the shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, Mukunda here means the giver of liberation, Lord Krishna. Okay, giving up all kinds of obligation and has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. So, here what Srimad Bhagavatam states, see, if you are doing devotional service to Krishna, you are not in debt to anybody. So, actually, in this, when we come to this material world, we are in debt to many of them. Like we are in debt to our parents who have given us birth. We are in debt to our teachers who have taught us education. We are in debt to the demigods who have given us so much, like wind, water, air, sunlight. So we are in debt to them. We are in debt to the rishis who have given us so many books to read. Right? To our spiritual teachers, we are in debt. So, like this, we are in debt to so many people. But we are free from this debt when we directly worship, do devotional service to Lord Krishna. Okay, just by, it's like saying that just by watering the root of the tree, the whole tree is nourished. So you don't have to specifically nourish the leaves or the trunk or the fruit or the leaf or the twig. You don't have to nourish. So by just watering the root of the tree, the whole tree is nourished. Like that, if you do devotional service of Lord Krishna, you are like pleasing everybody. You don't have to separately do pindadana, this sacrifice, that sacrifice, this social activity, that thing, this thing. Nothing you don't have to do. You are not even a debt to anybody. So that's what Krishna, Prabhupada is trying to say. See, those who are practicing devotional service to, who are doing devotional service to Krishna, they don't have to do all these other activities, Pindadana and everything, because they have taken shelter of Krishna, and Krishna will take care of them. He will simply, because they are performing devotional service, Krishna, one can, when we do a devotional service to Krishna, one can deliver hundreds and thousands of forefathers from all kinds of misery. That is what Prabhupada is saying, and we see that in the Srimad Bhagavatam Shloka 11.5.41. Okay, so this is one point. And we also saw that in the green square box, we see good population depends on faithfulness and chastity of the woman. So the woman has to be chaste. Only then we can get good children. And when we get good children, can there be good values given to the child? And when the child grows up, he is of a good person. And I mean, such people are needed for a good society. I mean, like peaceful, prosperous, and a spiritual society. Okay, and in Shloka 43, it is said that, translation, O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I've heard by disciplined succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. Now, what is Arjuna saying? He's not saying out of his own mind. He's saying, Krishna, I've heard by disciplic succession. Okay, so he's saying, I've heard from the authorities. He's not saying from my personal experience. He's saying, I've heard from the authorities. Authorities means from disciplic succession. It starts from Krishna, Krishna to Brahma, Brahma to Narada, Narada to Vyasa, Vyasa Maharshi, and so on till our very own Srila Prabhupada. So here Arjuna is saying, I've heard from the authorities. So this is the correct way that we have to receive knowledge. Okay, so one has to receive knowledge in this correct path. See, nowadays people, what they do, they go to they have the habit of browsing YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all that. So wherever they find any spiritual information, they take it and they think that is true, that is spiritual. It is not like that. Now everything may feel so appetizing for us. I mean, like it says, oh, this sounds so true, this sounds so real. Oh, this guru, he has so many followers, I think what he says is true. So we should not be under the blind notion like that. Because he has so many followers doesn't mean it has to be true. And nowadays, the preachers also, the way they preach, I mean, like they are, there's magic in their words, the way they talk, they mesmerize you. I mean, you think that, oh, what they're saying is so true. They put it in such a way that you get mesmerized. You think that it is so true, but we don't know like from which parampara they've come, which disciplic succession they have come, who is their guru, and who is his guru's guru. So, but so that is why we have to be very careful when we learn spiritual knowledge. We don't go and approach anybody and everybody. We don't listen to any video and audio that comes in all these YouTube channels or Facebooks or Instagrams. We have to select a authority, like do they have a guru, does their guru have a guru, is it like following the disciplic succession, are they following a particular sampradaya, are they in that disciplic succession, that tradition, that parampara is there or not, do they have a guru or not, like that we have to follow all these. We should not just go and listen because that guru has so many disciples, 1 lakh followers, oh, then he must be great, then I will listen to him. Not like that. Or because it sounds so nice, it is apt to me, very nice, I will take it up. Not like that. So we have to take it in a, when it like it is coming in disciplic succession, there has to be some authority to it. Okay, so here Arjuna is saying that, see, I've heard from the authorities, he's saying now. See, in the 43, we see in the yellow box, right? Arjuna heard from Dharma Shastra. So, Shastra is saying, I've heard from Dharma Shastra. So, that is how we should go, through the Shastras and through that disciplic succession. Okay, we should have such a guru. That what Arjuna is saying, those who destroy family tradition dwell in hell. So he is actually responsible. He will be responsible, right? In case he kills all the soldiers in the battlefield. So obviously, in the battlefield, in the soldiers, there may be many grandfathers, many fathers, because of which, because Arjuna kills all these people, they will lose the family tradition. There will be nobody to guide the women and children, because of which all these hafizats will take place. And then finally, he will have to go to hell. See, anyway, the children, the Varna Shankara children, they will go to hell. And because the forefathers, they don't get their Pindadana, they also go to hell. And now Arjuna is saying, see, because even because I am the cause of all this, I will also go to hell. That's what Arjuna is trying to say. So actually, there is a system. We have a system in Varnashrama, see, by which, before we die, we have to undergo the process of atonement. That is called prash. Like if we have done any sinful activities, we have to undergo atonement or prayashchitta. Okay, so if you don't do that, then after death, you will be transferred to the hellish planets. because you've done so many sinful activities, and if you don't do prayaschitta before you die, then obviously after dying, after your death, you have to atone for all those sinful activities for which you have to bear all the karma, bad karma for that. Okay, so actually that is what Arjuna is saying now. So I will have to bear all that karma. I mean, like, I will also go to hell because I am the reason for the destruction of their family. Okay, so that is what he's saying. So this is the fourth reason, destruction of family dynasty. So now we see it is given here, club, what in different steps. The above shlokas only 39 to 42 is given here. See, the superiors are killed. See, if the grandfathers and fathers in a family are killed, the what will happen? Destruction of the dynasty will happen. So what will happen? Destruction of eternal family tradition. See, because death of the elders, there will be nobody to guide the women and the children, and because of which nobody will be able to get the sanskaras. So all these Pindadana Vedic rituals and everything will stop. See, if religion becomes predominates in the family, why? Because there's nobody to guide the women and children. Well, because they don't know what to do, what not to do, and women become polluted and unchaste because they mix freely with the other gender, and because of which you get unwanted progeny. And when unwanted progeny is there, you can't expect good qualities in them, right? If the parents themselves are having all don't have all these spiritual values and samskaras, what will they give the children? So because of which the whole community and the society will be in chaos. Okay, there'll be no one proper process or path will not be there in the society. Everybody will do whatever they want, and there'll be chaos in the society. See, that's what we see in the society nowadays, right? The women, they fight for rights. We are equal to men. We want equal rights. We now that's the reason we see women in politics and women in everywhere. Women becomes a pilot. Women becomes an auto driver. Women work in petrol bunks. Equal to men, they are working, and because of such free mixing of the society, now you must have no, seen the concept of live-in relationships also, where they don't get married, but they live together and they, I mean, like they bear children, but they don't marry. So all this was predicted in the Srimad Bhagavatam long time ago, which we can practically see that is happening now. Okay, that it is so misfortunate that we are seeing it so soon in Kali Yuga. It's just hardly a matter of 5,000 years that has passed in Kali Yuga, but still we are seeing all so much in Kali Yuga. Okay, so now let's go to shloka number 44. So in the translation, alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts, driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness. We are intent on killing our own kinsmen. Okay, so here Arjuna is fearing of sinful reactions. See, he's saying that we are trying to kill our relatives. Only reason is to enjoy royal happiness because we have that desire to enjoy royal happiness. Okay, so here Prabhupada says in the purport, nowadays actually we see, right, people because they have the desire, they have so much greed, they want comfort, they want riches, everything, for which what they do, they even kill one's own brother, father, mother. We see so much of such news in the TVs nowadays, right? Because the mother and father, they didn't give the property, son killed mother and father, and some all these reasons, because the mother brother got more property, the younger brother kills the elder brother. So because of all these, and because they have the desire to get more, to enjoy more, so they perform all these sinful acts, they kill one another. But Arjuna is saying, see, but why should I kill? Because I know what is the outcome of the war. Right, there is so much sin if I kill my relatives. So why should I, if, when I know that there is so much bad outcome, so why should I, just for the sake of enjoying royal happiness to get that kingdom, why should I kill my relatives? Okay, so Arjuna, because he's a devotee, so he's always conscious of moral principles, and therefore he just wants to avoid war. I mean, he wants to avoid killing his relatives because of all this. Okay, so he's saying just for the desire of getting the royal kingdom, getting that happiness, we cannot kill our relative. It is so much sinful, right? That practically we see in Kali Yuga, we each kill each for. That's why they say Kali Yuga is a age of quarrel and hypocrisy. Okay, so there is like so much of quarrel, killing. You see so much of atrocities in Kali Yuga. There's so much of rape. You open the newspaper and you see all. There is nothing. You see peaceful in that. You see this politician screams on that politician. There is so many road accidents. There are so many rape cases. This person has killed for this property. This happened. So all these news you see in the newspaper. Okay. So next go to the 45, shloka number 45. Translation. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. So what is Arjuna saying now? See, generally, according to Kshatriya, if he's fighting and in the fight, if he's unarmed and he's unwilling to fight, he's unarmed, he has no knife in his hand to fight, or he does not want to fight, the other king or the person should not attack him. That is the rule. That is the principle, fighting principle. But what is Arjuna saying? Even though if they still want to attack me in this situation, even when I'm unarmed and even I don't want to fight, even if they attack me also, it is okay. Then also I will not fight. Okay, so he Arjuna he didn't consider like how much the other party, they're so bent, they're so greedy, they just want the kingdom, whatever be the consequence, whether I kill many people or there's so much of bloodshed, they are not bothered. They are so bent on fighting and they want to get the kingdom. But Arjuna, he being a soft-hearted person, he knows the result. What happens if all this fighting is done? Okay, so that's why he's saying, okay, and no problems. Let them do whatever they want. Let them even kill me unarmed, even if I don't want to fight. Actually, per the rule, they should not kill. But even because they're so bent, they're so greedy that they want the kingdom, let them kill me. But then also, I will not fight. That is what. So we can see Arjuna's soft-heartedness here. Okay, he was so soft-hearted. All these are the qualities of a devotee. So they have all these compassionate qualities, like where even though they are in so much pain, they don't want to hurt the others. Okay, now let's go to shloka number 46. So Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down in the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. So you can see in the picture, right? How Arjuna he's overcome so much with compassion, kripa, daya, mercy. Okay, so he became so overwhelmed and he started crying in grief. So he put his bow and arrow aside, and the person who was standing now he sits down in the chariot. Okay, so this is chapter 1. So now here you can see the saintly qualities of Arjuna. So we've seen all this. So you can just go through the PDF. I'll give you after the chapter 1 is over. So all what we have discussed right in the earlier shloka, the same thing is given here. Okay, soft-heartedness. He does not want to kill even in exchange for the three worlds, and he's ready to forgive any aggressors, though there is no reaction in killing them. So all the same, all the points we have covered. In case after reading the PDF, if you have any doubts, you can always get back to me. At any point after the class is over, we can always discuss the doubts. Okay, but all these points we've discussed. So I just want to go ahead. Don't want to waste any time repeating them again. Okay, see all these reasons, same thing. See, we've told four reasons, right? But the reasons, the last reason we'll see in today's class, if possible, that is 2.6. The first other reason that we have seen is, first one is compassion. He didn't want to kill his relatives. Second is enjoyment. There is no enjoyment. And third is destruction of, I mean, third is, yeah, whatever, sinful reactions. Four, destruction of family. And last, fifth one is, it is given in Shloka chapter 2, sixth Shloka. So that we'll try to see today if possible. So that is indecision. Okay, so Arjuna, he's like in a confusion. Indecision means he's not able to make a proper decision whether to fight or not. So he's confused. So that is the last reason why he doesn't want to fight, because he's confused. He doesn't know whether to fight or not. Okay, that we'll see. So the summary is that is what to see everything, the same thing, the same points. You can just go through. And with this, we complete chapter 1, and we'll try to take chapter 2 also today. Okay, so chapter 2 is like contents of the Gita summarized. So chapter 2 is nothing but it gives the summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Okay, it covers all the chapters, it gives the summary of Gita, Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so this is all the. My page is stuck up, I'm sorry. It's not. Please give me a few seconds. Stuck up. Okay, this is the summary of chapter 1 that we see that what are the reasons for which Arjuna doesn't wish to fight. So, this is very important. So, we have to remember these. One is compassion, second is no enjoyment, third is fear of sinful reactions, fourth is destruction of family tradition. And today in chapter 2, sixth shloka, we'll see the last reason, the fifth reason also why Arjuna didn't want to fight. That is indecision. He could not take a proper decision whether to fight or not, because of which he was confused. And then at that point, Arjuna surrenders to Lord Krishna. And then Krishna, he gives that transcendental knowledge. He gives the Bhagavad Gita, right? So let's see that. So in chapter 2, we have these sections. It is divided this way. So we'll see part by part what. So 2.1 to 10, we'll see Arjuna's further doubts, right? He's not yet clarified, but he's saying, I still don't want to fight, right? We saw four reasons. Now we'll see the fifth reason also. What is that reason? See, Arjuna's further doubts and his surrender. We'll see today. We'll try to see, I'm not sure. So 1 to 10. So after Arjuna continues to express his doubts about fighting, see, finally he surrenders in 2.7. He surrenders to Krishna for instructions. So we'll see that also. Okay. So 2.1. First, we'll read the first shloka. Okay. Sanjaya Uvacha Tam tata कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणं विषीदन्तम् idam vakyam uvacha madhusudanah. So translation, Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. Okay, now, so we see that Krishna, he is called Madhusudana here. Okay, see now in the previous chapter we saw that Krishna, Arjuna is fully full of compassion, he is depressed and he is in tears and he sits down. Okay, now Sanjaya is telling to Dhritarashtra, seeing the stage of Arjuna, Krishna, he spoke the following words. Let's see what Krishna spoke. Before we go into that, so in the purport, Prabhupada says that Krishna is called Madhusudana here. So earlier classes also we described discussed why Krishna is called Madhusudana, because he killed the demon. He killed the demon by the name Madhu. So now Arjuna is asking Krishna to kill the demon like doubts that he has in his mind. Okay, that's why he is addressing Krishna as Madhusudana. And see, now we see that Krishna has not yet started his teachings as yet. Okay, we all know that Krishna and Arjuna are cousins as well as best friends, right? So Krishna is so close to Arjuna. So that is why he became the Rathasarthi. As a friend, he became a Rathasarthi, right? So now Krishna will talk to Arjuna in the same relationship now. So till up till now, even till this second chapter, first shloka, they both are friends and cousins. Okay, they are still speaking in that same relationship here. See, for example, see if you see if you have a close friend of yours, and in life sometimes we have such situations where your friend may undergo a very pitiable situation where I mean he's under a difficult situation, right? Like how Arjuna is now in a difficult situation. So your friend, I'm just giving an example comparison. Like your friend may also be in a difficult situation. Okay. But did we ever get a situation like Arjuna where we have to kill our own grandfather or teacher? Forget about killing our grandfather or teacher. If somebody comes and asks us to slap our father or mother, can we do that? See, but we all, what we think, we can't do it right. But we all may be thinking that, oh, why is Arjuna overreacting? Why is he overreacting so much? Why is he can go and fight, na? Why is he not fighting? It is his dharma as a Kshatriya to fight. But it is easy for us to say. But if we put ourselves in Arjuna's position, we will understand that this is an extreme situation. Like he's forced to kill his teachers, okay, his grandfather, his fathers-in-law, his sons, everybody. How can he do that? This is an extreme situation. For us, we may think, oh, he's a kshatriya, he can go and fight. Why is he so much overacting? We will think. But if we are put into Arjuna's situation, then we will understand. If we are asked to kill our father or grandfather, can we do it? No, right? So this is an extreme situation. So in this extreme situation, how did Arjuna manage? So in this situation now, let us see how Krishna spoke. Okay, but what do we generally expect when our friend is sad, when we go to our friend, he is depressed, we try to console him. Oh, don't worry, it'll get better. It'll be nice, and we try to console him, right? But let us see what Krishna did, right? Did he console Arjuna or what did he do? Let's see now in the second shloka. Okay, so here Prabhupada says in the purport that because Arjuna was in grief, right? He was showing all this material compassion, lamentation, tears. So Prabhupada is saying that all these are signs of ignorance. So ignorance of he's thinking on the bodily platform. Okay, but what is the real self? Who are we actually? Are we this body? No, right? The soul. We are the soul. But since the soul can't live by itself, it needs a body. Okay, so that's why we take a different kind of dress. The soul, it takes different kinds of dresses. One janma we take dress of a human body. In one janma, the dress of a cat, the dress of a pig, like that. Okay, but real compassion is when you show self realization. Okay, so compassion for the soul is the real self realization. That is real compassion. When you know that you are soul and you show compassion for your soul. See, now all the people in this material world, they show so much compassion, so much caring for this body, which is going to go somehow. But the soul will remain forever, it is eternal. So nobody is caring about the soul. Nobody is feeding the soul. Everybody is just feeding the body. They're not bothered about the soul at all. But the real compassion you show is when you understand that you're soul and you feed the soul. You give importance to the soul. Okay, and here in this purport, Prabhupada gives the analogy saving dress of a drowning man. Okay, see, if somebody is drowning in the river, will you save that person or the dress of that drowning person? What is the use if you just save the dress of that person and that person is drowning? So, similarly, what we are trying to do is we are in so much ignorance that we are trying to save this outward dress. What is this outward dress? This gross body. But we are forgetting about the main thing, that is the soul. Okay, so one who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called a Shudra. So, if a man is drowning, we should save that person and not the outer dress that he's wearing. But if you save the outer dress, will it be enough? Will you be saving the drowning man? No. Like that, we are also in nascence, we are also in ignorance. We are thinking, like Arjuna is thinking, by saving the body, from killing, he's thinking that he's doing a favor. But anyway, somehow or the other, that body has to go. But what is it that remains forever? Is the soul that is eternal. So that we have to understand. Okay, and we should not lament for the body. Okay, if one laments for the body, which is anyway at any point of time it is going to perish, so such person is called a Shudra, and who laments for this body, and for which we'll see, and we'll be discussing in chapter 2 about self realization. So, actually, chapter 2 mainly deals with self realization, talks more about the analytical study of soul and material body. So, analytical study means we'll be comparing the soul and the body. Okay, so Krishna explains all these concepts here in chapter 2. In the next coming shlokas, we'll see how he explains the comparison between soul and body. Okay, so let's go to shloka 2. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva idam vishame samupastitam anaryajustam asvargyam akirtikaram arjuna. Okay, now Krishna is saying what the Supreme Personality of Godhead or Bhagavan said, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy. Okay, so here Krishna is telling Arjuna, see, how have these impurities come upon you? You're a devotee. You know all, everything. You know Shastras, everything you know. So you are an Aryan. You know all the spiritual Shastras, everything. So why you behaving like an Anaryan? So you know the value of life. So it does not befit you. See, if you don't fight now, you are thinking if you don't fight, I will go to heaven. But if you don't fight, then you will surely go to hell because you're not doing your duty. You will get infamy. You think by not performing war, see, they do not lead to higher planets. You think by not fighting, you think you will go to heaven. No, but you will go to infamy. You will not go to higher planets. You will not go to heaven by not fighting. In fact, you will get infamy. You will be blasphemed. You'll become infamous. That's what Krishna is saying here. Okay, so before we get into the shloka, here in the purports, Srila Prabhupada, he says, we see in the shloka, right? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, or in the shloka we see Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. So the concept of Bhagavan is very well explained here by Srila Prabhupada. See, many of them think that God is impersonal. He has no form. He is light. He is energy. So here clearly Prabhupada is saying Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Bhagavan means what? He has a personal form. So actually there are three stages of self-realization. Okay, the first is impersonal Brahman. Impersonal Brahman is that Brahma Jyoti. Okay, that light, that energy that we say, right? The impersonal Brahma Jyoti. That is the first stage. The second stage is the localized Paramatma. So the Paramatma who is present in our heart. That is the second stage. And the final, ultimate, complete stage is Bhagavan. He is personal. Okay. So these are the three ways in which you can understand the absolute truth. Okay. So generally, I mean, like the effulgence that is coming, the light, what they think is he himself is God. That impersonal Brahma Jyoti is nothing but the effulgence that is coming from Lord Krishna. Because these people who are not so they don't go so deep. See, when you the effulgence of Krishna is so bright that it is difficult to see what is in that light. So only if you pass through that effulgence of Krishna can you enter and see the Lord, right? The Krishna's effulgence is so bright, but people, since they can't enter this effulgence, they think that is only God. That impersonal Brahma Jyoti itself is God, and they start worshipping that God, that as God, that light or energy as God. But that is wrong. Once we enter that light, we see that we see Krishna is there. This Brahma Jyoti is nothing but the bodily effulgence of Lord Krishna. So that we have to understand. And Parasura Muni also, Prabhupada says, the father of Vyasadev, he says that who is Bhagavan? Okay, so Bhagavan, the definition of Bhagavan is like one who is full of five opulences. Okay, what are those five opulences? Riches. He is the wealthiest. He has all strength. He has all fame. He has all beauty. He has all knowledge. And he has all renunciation. So, one who has all these full five in full, he is called Bhagavan. See, anybody in this material world, you see, maybe he is too much in strength. He is maybe too much in fame. He has too much famous. He is so much famous. He is so much beautiful. He has so much knowledge. But all these put together, can you see anybody? That person is Bhagavan. If we see all these five put together in full, that is Bhagavan. Okay, so there's no person like that in this world. You see, some may be beautiful, some may be rich, some may be famous, but not all these five put together. So here, Prabhupada is trying to give the definition of Bhagavan. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Who is Bhagavan? That's why in this purport, I mean, in this Bhagavad Gita, they don't say Krishna Uvacha. They say Bhagavan Uvacha. For other normal people, they say Arjuna Uvacha, Sanjay Uvacha, like that. But they're putting Krishna as Bhagavan. They're not saying Krishna Uvacha, not like some other person. Because he's God, Bhagavan. They're saying Bhagavan Uvacha. So that we have to understand. Okay, so now Krishna, see, we said right now Arjuna was in a depressed condition. Generally, what do we do if our friend is depressed? We try to console him. See now, but what Krishna did? Krishna is chastising him. In fact, instead of consoling, he's chastising. But let's see why. So Krishna is saying, how has these impurities come upon you? So this is not good. You should not be getting such thoughts at this point of time. You have decided not to fight. Do you think that this will benefit you? So Krishna is asking Arjuna, see, you are behaving like an Anarya. Okay, Arjuna is an Arya. Generally, who is an Aryan? An Aryan is a person who follows all the Vedic principles. Like he has self-realized knowledge. He performs all acharyas. What do you say? He performs all these acharas, samskaras, everything he knows. So earlier days, everybody, they used to know the Vedic principles, the acharas, everything. So they had that knowledge. So that is why they were called Aryans. But Krishna is saying, Krishna is saying, Arjuna, that you are behaving like a person who does not know these Vedic principles. You are behaving like a person who does not follow acharas. You are behaving like an ignorant, no knowledge person. What are you thinking? See, if you don't fight, now you will go to heaven. No, you are thinking that Krishna is saying, you are thinking that if you don't fight now, I will go to heaven. But Krishna is saying, you won't go to heaven. You know what you will get? You will get Akirti. Infamous you will become. Okay, nobody will praise you. Oh, Arjuna did a nice thing. He didn't fight. Nobody will think like that. Everybody will think that you are covered. You ran away from this battlefield seeing the strength of Kaurava's Sena. Nobody will think that out of compassion you're not fighting. You will get so much infamy. You'll become infamous. You'll get lot of akirti. Okay, so now see, even though Arjuna was depressed, still Krishna gave him a proper dose now. He scolded Arjuna nicely. So though Arjuna was depressed, still Krishna gave a proper dose. He scolded Arjuna nicely. So he is not showing any sympathy or daya actually, Krishna. But actually, in reality, Krishna is showing sympathy. Okay, so though his words appear harsh, but they are a fact, right? He's actually an Aryan, but he's behaving like an Aryan. But so what Krishna, even though he's scolding, is for his good. What he's saying is a fact, right? How it is important. Okay, it is a necessity. I mean, it's actually a necessity. See, if we see today, okay, we will see today in the, I mean, like in the other shlokas, we'll see how what Krishna is saying is a fact. Okay. And one more thing, I just wanted to say, like, in actually Mahabharata, there is actually, and we see here actually in the shloka, Prabhupada also says one thing. He says that Krishna was, though he was the king of Dwaraka at that time, right? But then he became a chariot driver. So, for a king to become a chariot driver is a very menial position. How can a king ever become a chariot driver? Very difficult, right? Anybody who's the, if you ask a Tata or a Birla to drive the car for you, will he do it? Is it possible? No, right? So in Mahabharata also there is a name event. I'll just tell you that small story. Okay, so Duryodhana asks Karna, see, why are you not killing Arjuna? Okay, now Karna said, Arjuna has a good chariot driver. If I also get a good chariot driver, then I also will kill. So now Karna is just finding excuses to kill for not killing Arjuna. He just gave one lame reason like that. Now Duryodhana, he then says, "Okay, then tell me, Karna, whom do you want as your chariot drivers? Who do you want as a Sarathi? Tell me. I will arrange for you. I only want Arjuna to be killed by you. I will do anything for that." Now Karna tells, "I want Shalya." But who is the Shalya? Shalya is a Maharadi. He's a king. Maharati means you can imagine how great a warrior he is. Why will he become a Rathasarathi for Karna, who is a Sudra? Okay, now he says, if Shalya can become my chariot driver, then I can kill Arjuna. Okay, now we know Duryodhana is a great politician. So he went to Shalya. And who is Shalya actually? Shalya is the father in law of Nakula and Sahadeva. Now, we may be wondering, why, how come Nakula and Sahadeva's father-in-law is fighting on Duryodhana's side? Okay, there is a story for that also. Now, Shalya actually to fight for the, he comes, he brings one or two Akshohini Sena from Madras. At that time, the place where he was staying is in Madras. Now he had to come to Kurukshetra, right, to fight the battle. So he is bringing all his one or two Akshoni Sena from Madras to here to join the Pandavas team in fighting. Okay, so on the way, it is a long way, right? It's not like now they have buses and aeroplanes or trains so that they can come. So they had to come walking, right? So on the way, they had to camp and they had to stay in tents and everything, all the food and everything had to be arranged, right? So on the way, in one such place, what Duryodhana sees that, oh, Shalya is coming. He has so much of army. Two Akshohini Sena is there. So now Duryodhana, he's like, he's a great politician. He wanted that army. So in the middle, Shalya, he wanted to take rest. See, morning till evening they walked, and night they have to camp somewhere, right? So there they saw that there was nice camp put, nice food was given to them, entertainment was given, all nice facilities were given, and they all were so happy. So now, but we don't see Duryodhana is there. Duryodhana doesn't come into picture there. Everything, all this camp, food, entertainment, everything is arranged through his assistants and ministers. Okay, now Shalya is so happy. He says to the assistants or the ministers who are present there, see, I'm so happy with your arrangements. Tell your leader I'm ready to do anything for him. Now, Shalya is under the impression that Yudhishthir Maharaj is doing all these things for him. So that is why he tells, see, I'm so happy with the Yudhishthira. Okay, tell him I'm ready to do anything for him. But actually, he doesn't know all this is done by Duryodhana. So when he knows, like, when then the ministers, what do they say? They say that take your Sena and go to the camp of Duryodhana and fight on the side of Duryodhana. Then Shalya becomes shocked and surprised. What is this? I was actually going to fight for the Pandavas. But since I have given the promise that I will do anything, so now I'm forced to fight for the a fight on the side of Kauravas. See, that is how Shalya he fights on the side of Kauravas, though unwilling, because he has given a promise that he will do anything. Uh, because he was given such nice comforts. So he had to fight on the side of Kauravas. Because Kshatriyas, once they make a promise, they never step back. So that is Kshatriya Dharma. So to keep that promise, Shalya, he joins Duryodhana's team. So Duryodhana, he's famous for doing such politics. And finally, so he gathers this Sena of Shalya. So now Duryodhana he goes to Shalya and asks if he can be the chariot driver of Karna. Okay, so he goes to Shalya and asks if he can. Now Shalya says he goes mad. He gets angry. Are you mad? I am a Maharati. Where is Karna in front of me? He is a Shudra Putra. How can I become his chariot driver? I will not become. Then Duryodhana, we know he's a great diplomat now. Now he starts his wordplay now. He says that, see, what you're thinking chariot position is very low or what? You see who's the chariot driver of Arjuna? It is Krishna, right? Okay. So now Karna wants to fight with Arjuna, and Arjuna's chariot driver is Krishna. And Karna's chariot driver, you have to be the chariot driver for Karna because you are the only person who can equal Krishna. So he's praising Shalya, saying that you are the only person who's suitable and correct for Krishna to match. Like how Karna will fight with Arjuna, like that you are a perfect match. You are a perfect Rathasarathi, equal on level with Krishna. So he now nice wordplay is doing. So somehow he convinces Shalya to be the chariot driver. Okay, even Shalya accepts. Okay, so that's what. See now, even Shalya, he said right to become a Rathasarathi. He was saying, "I'm a king, I'm a Maharati," but to become a Sarathi is a low position. Even then, Krishna accepts. So because Krishna has no false ego. Now, Shalya had false ego, right? I'm a Maharati, or how can I become a Rathasarathi? But Krishna, he accepts because Krishna has no false ego. Oh, I'm a king, how can I become a Sarathi? No, he didn't have. He said, I will become a Sarathi for my friend. So it is out of love to Arjuna that he became a Sarathi to Arjuna. So we've seen Krishna's renunciation, right? He is not attached to his position. right? So we can see that renunciation in Krishna, which is one of the opulences of Krishna. Out of the five, right? He's full of renunciation. So he showed his renunciation now. So that is what is being said here. So we see here like how Krishna, he strongly spoke to Arjuna. So in the next shloka, he tells Arjuna even more strongly. Okay, let's see what he says. Okay, let's see in shloka number 3. So let's read shloka 3. Klaibyam asma gamah pata naitatvayupapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvotishta parantapa. So what is he saying? Krishna saying, O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Okay, now Krishna is saying to Arjuna, see, you're behaving like a degrading, impotent man, as if, okay, so he's saying, don't you have any potency in you? Don't you have the power to fight? You're behaving like an impotent man. It does not befit you. See, you're thinking that out of compassion for your relatives, you can't fight. But according to Krishna, that is weakness of heart that Arjuna is having. Krishna is saying, your heart is not strong. You have a weak heart, Arjuna. So leave this, get up and fight. See, if you, he's saying that Arjuna, you are the chastiser of enemies. You, till now, you have attacked everybody and emerged victorious. You are the chastiser of enemies. But now you are not behaving like that. So get up and behave like that. Be ready to attack your enemies. So now we see if Arjuna will stand up and fight after Krishna spoke so harshly. So let us see what will happen. Okay, let us see in shloka number 4. Arjuna said, see, Arjuna uvacha katam bhishmam aham sankhye dronam cha madhusudana ishubhihi pratiyotsyami pujarhau arisudana. So translation, Arjuna said, O killer of the enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in a battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? Okay, so now Arjuna is saying, how can I counterattack? See, counterattack means even though Arjuna is not attacking, even like if the arrows are coming from Bhishma and Dronacharya also, other side, they are my guru and grandfather. How can I return them again with arrows? How can I counterattack them even though they are attacking me? So how can I attack them? How can I attack my grandfather Bhishma and Dronacharya? So we should not throw arrows on them. We should worship them. We should not fight with them. So Arjuna is telling Krishna, this is not weakness of heart. So here Arjuna is trying to give explanation to Krishna. See, if you had to kill your Guru Sandipana Muni or your grandfather Ugrasena, would you kill Krishna? You are asking me to kill, right? You are asking me to kill my grandfather Bhishma and my teacher Dronacharya, but will you be ever be ready to kill your grandfather Ugrasena and your teacher Sandipana Muni? So Arjuna is arguing, right? So Arjuna and Krishna are now friends. So Krishna, in that friendship, is chastising Arjuna strongly, and Arjuna is also replying back as to what is the reason why he does not want to fight. And he's calling him Madhusudana once again. Why? because he has killed the demon Madhu. He's saying that you have killed killed a demon, and you've become a great hero. Okay, but why I am not able to kill? The reason is they are my grandfather and guru. See, till now you have killed all demons only. That's why you were able to kill. But now you are asking me to kill. But I am not able to kill. Why? Because they are my grandfather and guru and not demons. They should be worshipped and they should not be counter attacked. That is what Arjuna is telling Krishna. He's in fact arguing with Krishna. He's saying, see, you are easily telling me kill my teacher and grandfather, but will you kill your teacher and grandfather? So he's arguing like how a friend is arguing with though Krishna is chastising him, so they're both arguing like friends. Okay, so now let's go to the fifth shloka. So in that translation, Arjuna is saying it would be better to live in this world by begging. Okay, it would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. So, what Arjuna is telling Krishna, see, it is better for me to go and live by begging than to kill these great personalities who are my teachers and grandfather. See, even though they may be desiring all this worldly gain, even though they are desiring, huh? What else I can tell? Even though they are desiring worldly gain, even they are greedy and they are fighting for the kingdom, but still they are my superiors. They are respectable. Even though they are trying to behave in a greedy way, they're fighting for such kingdom, but still they are my elders. They need respect. They're my grandfather and my teacher. See, if they are killed, if they are killed, and then I get the kingdom also, how will I be happy? See, my hands will be full of blood after killing my grandfather and my teacher. How will I be able to enjoy the victory? So that's why I don't want to attack them. That's what he's trying to say. So he's saying, rather than killing my superiors, it would be better for me to live by begging. So Krishna is telling what? Kill them. But Arjuna is telling it is better for me to live by begging. So he's saying that even though they are desiring for worldly gain, kingdom, but still they are my superiors. So according to the Shastras, if the Guru has done wrong action, he can be abandoned. I mean, we can leave that Guru. If the guru has done some wrong action, we can leave that guru and accept some other guru. So Bhishma and Drona why Bhishma and Drona were forced to take the side of Duryodhana. So you all know, right? Bhishma and Dronacharya, they were given financial assistance by Duryodhana. All the food and money was provided to Dronacharya and Bhishma by Duryodhana. So that is the only reason why Bhishma and Dronacharya took the side, because the financial assistance was given to Bhishma and Dronacharya by Duryodhana. They fought on the side of Duryodhana. But here they are saying that Prabhupada is saying, okay, maybe they must have given you assistance, but that should not be the thing, right? Criteria. Because just because he's supporting you with money and food and everything, shelter, you should always be on the side of justice. Because he's just feeding you and supporting you doesn't mean you take the side of injustice. But still, they because of that small reason they accepted to fight on the side of Duryodhana. So because they that is the reason Prabhupada says they have lost respect as teachers. But even though they've lost their respect as teachers and grandparents, but Arjuna nevertheless he thinks that they still remain their superiors. Therefore, to enjoy the kingdom after killing them, he's saying that, oh, even if I kill, even suppose I kill them also and I get the kingdom, I can't even enjoy the victory because I've killed my superiors, great souls like my grandfather Bhishma and Dronacharya. How will I be able to enjoy the kingdom? So much bloodshed on my hands, he's saying. So Arjuna is telling Krishna, so you're asking me to get up and fight. See, I have so many doubts. First, you clear them. So Arjuna comes to the final point. Krishna, see, I'm not understanding what I have to do. You please clear my doubts. So in the next two shlokas, we'll see how Arjuna he surrenders to Krishna and accepts him as his guru. Till now, only friendly talks are going on. Okay, now he is accepting Krishna. He will accept in the future, sixth and seventh shloka. We'll see how he accepts him as his guru. Okay, in 2.6, we'll see. So, a translation, nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. So, if we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet, they are now standing before us. Okay, so now here Arjuna is putting his confusion out. So he's not. He's saying I don't know which is good. Okay, if I don't fight, I have to live by begging. So he has only two options. Either if he doesn't fight, he has to go and live by begging. But if he fights the battle, it's not necessary that he has to win. But in case if he wins the battle against the Kauravas, it will be very difficult for him to live in his absence because the Kauravas are not there, they're killed, right? All their brothers are not there. So he says, Arjuna is saying it will be difficult to live in their absence. So it is like actually having one more kind of defeat. So Arjuna, he didn't know whether he should fight and be the cause of unnecessary violence or he should refrain from fighting and live by begging. So, in the next shloka, he's having this confusion now. So, should I refrain from battlefield and live by begging, or should I fight and cause the necessary violence? So, because of this confusion, in the next shloka, we'll see that Arjuna, he because he's in this, he's not able to take a proper decision. He tells, like he surrenders to Krishna and he accepts him as his guru and he says, Krishna, please guide me, please let me know. Now you are my guru. I am a surrendered disciple to you. Please tell me what I have to do. So he takes shelter of Krishna. Okay. So now in 2.7 we see this is a famous shloka and you can memorize the shloka. Karpanya doshopahata swabhavaha pruchami tvam dharma sammuda cheta yat shreyahasyan nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadi mam tvam prapannam. Okay, so here um, Arjuna is surrendering to Krishna because he's not able to decide. He is in a confusion. See, all of us have perplexities in life, difficulties in life. See, when we have difficulties in life, we should approach a person who can give us a solution. Okay, so therefore, we should approach a bona fide spiritual master who can guide us for executing the purpose of life. Okay, so we should understand, like, see who is the man in material perplexities now. See, it is he who does not understand the problems of life and he lives like cats and dog. Actually, this human life should be used to solve the problems of life. Okay, so one who does not use this opportunity properly, is called a miser. So here Prabhupada talks about Kripana or miserly person. Okay, so what does a Kripana or miserly person does? If he has money, what he does, he tries to hide the money, right? Okay, so he here Kripana or miserly person means they waste their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, and country. So they're so much attached to their family, society, and country. So the Kripana thinks he is able to protect his family members from death. Okay, such family see what he thinks is like when suppose for instance he is about to die, he thinks that his family members will protect him from death. Okay, can family members protect us from death? Okay, it's so much attachment he has that he thinks that they will save him from death. Okay, such family attachment can be found in lower animals also, and in fact more we can see in lower animals. The attachment for body is more. Okay, so although Arjuna knew it was his duty to fight, he knows as a Kshatriya, he knows that it is his duty to fight. But still, on account of miserly weakness, because of what miserly weakness means, he had attachment to his to the bodies of the relatives. He could not discharge his duties. So therefore, he knows his duty, he has to fight. But because of this miserly weakness, attachment to the bodies of the relatives, he is not able to perform his duty. So therefore, he is asking Krishna to provide a definite solution. He is saying, please give me a solution. Krishna, I'm in confusion. I'm not able to decide what I have to do. So that's the reason he accepts Krishna. He says, now I am accepting you as my guru. Okay, you please accept me as your disciple. So now Arjuna wants to stop all this friendly talk. See, if two friends are talking, it will never come to a decision, conclusion. They'll be just arguing. So that's why Arjuna wanted to stop all this friendly talk. Okay, talks between, like if you see, the master and the disciple are serious. The guru and the disciple are serious. Now Arjuna, he wanted to talk very seriously. Okay, so that's why he accepted Krishna as a spiritual master, and we all know that Krishna is the Param Guru. He is the ultimate, original spiritual master. So he's accepting Krishna as the spiritual master, and he's asking him to accept him as his disciple and please give him the correct decision what to do or what not to do. Okay, we'll stop here at 2.7, and please let me know if you have any doubts till here. And from tomorrow, we'll continue from